We go to your calls, comments, thoughts, and reactions. And whether, in fact, John Boehner, I read you part of John Boehner's statement, he's going to propose a lawsuit against the president. Do you agree with that? Mark, you're first. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Mark Fisher again, Republican candidate for governor.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about how a state that elected Elizabeth Warren, and for that matter, Deval Patrick, is going to elect a Republican with common sense like Mark Fisher.
Here's two things, Mike. Definitely the Democrats own the state, but in my mind, that means they own all the problems. They can't blame Republicans for anything. So I think it's a wonderful time to be a Republican if you run as one, if you run as a conservative. And 25% of the state is conservative. The problem is they don't go out and vote. They sit on their couches because there hasn't been a conservative candidate that espouses their views. And that's why I'm running.
Well, what do you make of the fact that, look, William Weld was successful, Mitt Romney was successful, Frank Sargent was successful, all Republicans. What was the ingredient that made them successful?
I think people in the state of Massachusetts vote Democratic until things get to a point where they can't take it longer. And with the doubling of food stamps and all the fraud and abuse, EBT cards and illegal immigration, for Massachusetts to become a sanctuary state, we're at that tipping point again. I think it's time that the Republican takes the floor of office.
To what degree do you believe that you'll benefit from the fallout from Obama's allowing all these tens of thousands of kids to come into the country? I realize it's not coming directly to Massachusetts, but some will ultimately, and it's a Democrat policy. What effect will that have on your race as governor?
Oh, I think it's going to be huge. I mean, even in the state of Massachusetts, we've got the mayor of Somerville and others that have told law enforcement to stand down. Hey, Mike, I got a good one for you. The mayor of Somerville said that it's a moral thing to bring in illegals here. John Paul II, back in 95, said illegal immigration should be prevented. So I'll take my moral example from John Paul, not from the mayor of Somerville.
By the way, what you ought to be doing is taking that Title 8, Section 1325 of the U.S. Code, handing it out to people like the mayor of Somerville.
Absolutely.
Are we a nation of laws or a nation of men?
Ditto. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
So I think...
Mike.
I appreciate it, and I thank you for calling. Good luck to you in the campaign, too. Mark Fisher running for governor, and we'll see how that plays out. I wanted to ask, I should have asked about Elizabeth Warren and the president talking about supporting her. Can you believe how Hillary would be absolutely ballistic about that? Because first of all, they cut a deal that Obama would support Hillary if Bill Clinton went out and supported him for re-election. And Bill Clinton supporting him for re-election probably had a major effect on his winning. Interesting dynamic there, isn't it? Claudia, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning. All right. Claudia, her radio's on there. Claudia, you with us? Guess she's gone. Go to Joe next. Joe, you're on WRKO with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. I couldn't agree with you more. If we don't deal with this issue of illegal immigration, then we have really nothing else to worry about because it's going to end everything else. I got to just make a couple of points to you. We've got, and you can Google this, we've got 40 million homeless children in the streets of Central and South America. Do these liberal idiots want all 40 million in here?
It's a good question. Look, I mean, if they're bringing some in, why would we discriminate against the others? Bring them all in.
That's right. Bring them all in. And there was a book written a long time ago. The man is a Frenchman. It's called The Camp Saints. And basically the book describes what if, in that time he used India, what if millions and millions and millions of people decided to immigrate to Europe, to France. And Europe would be just inundated, and Western European culture would have been destroyed. This is basically what's happening now.
Name me one country that has as lax an immigration policy as the United States of America.
Well, you know, the problem is, and part of the problem is our own Republicans. Charlotte, North Carolina, the majority, and this is on the George page, the majority of children in the school system are now immigrants, and most of them are illegal. Now, what is Charlotte, North Carolina? Is that a border state? I don't think so.
No, you're right about that. I was just reading that report this morning. Charlotte, North Carolina also has a very high drug trafficking with these illegals. There's a high drug trafficking element for some reason in Charlotte, and it's unfortunate. It's a beautiful city.
I want the conservatives. We constantly support big corporations, and we constantly scream about the death tax, and we're always the useful idiots for the very wealthy people in this country. And yes, I am a conservative. Yes, I am. I'm not a communist. But these are the people who brought all these illegals in there. And believe me, the big corporations, boys and girls, are not your friends. Going back to Proposition 187 in California was opposed by the big corporations. Every time we conservatives, we think that all these big corporations are our friends. They're not.
You know what really the problem is? You just hit on something. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce supports illegal immigrants coming in. They actually put money into campaigns for candidates who support illegals getting into this country. And the reason is their business friends want the cheap labor. They're willing, in big business and at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, to sell out this country. They're prostitutes for money. They're pure prostitutes for money at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and for their business friends at the expense of any integrity, morals, ethics, or values. They don't want to. They don't give a blank about this country's integrity, about its stability. They just want to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze the money and suck it dry and bring in illegals so that they have to pay less wages and Americans lose their jobs.
And they're doing this at their peril. And my best quote from the movie America with Dinesh D'Souza was from Saul Alinsky. He said, I can convince a millionaire on Friday night to fund a revolution on Saturday so he could profit from it on Sunday, but then on Monday he would be executed.
I thank you for the call. I think that's a great point. And that Dinesh D'Souza film is a great film to see if you haven't seen it yet. It's out there now. 617-266-6868. Mike, you have a great name. You're on with Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Good morning, Michael. I'm listening this morning, and my biggest concern is we speak about how we throughout the country, everybody says we have to worry about children, education, and health, and exercise, and so on and so forth. Who is going to look after these children if we bring these children to our country?
I don't have the slightest idea. Is it Barack Obama going to bring them with him to Chicago when he leaves the White House?
I wonder if he is. I wonder if he's going to bring them in and have his mother-in-law take care of them, like she supposedly takes care of his two daughters. This gentleman, I think he hates our country. I really do. I don't think he wants to help our country. I think he's looking to destroy our country. It seems like, communistic or whatever, and whatever he's doing, he's trying. He's just.
Well, look, let's face it. He's a globalist. What that means is that he wants, a one world government. And ultimately, if he could have it, he doesn't believe in the United States sovereignty. It's clear from his policies he doesn't. He wants to reduce America's economy. He has financial advisors, economic advisors, who wrote in the 1990s, in writings that they did, that they believe that the American economy has to be reduced by about 10% in order to be able to bring up the third world countries and bring down America. Right now as we speak, Fox is showing tensions rising in California, in Murrieta, California, where people are out there protesting against the illegal immigrants. And it is a shame, it is a disgrace to this country that the American people who are trying to defend the integrity of our country and stop illegal immigrants from coming in, that Barack Obama, the thug in the White House, an absolute thug, is trying to walk over the American people and protect illegals. Shame on Obama, what a disgrace he is to this country. And I don't even consider him to be an American. He's anti-American, is what he is. He wants to downsize the value of this country in the world, and he's doing a pretty good job of it already. We go to Howie next. Howie, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to hear your voice again. I'd just like to add a couple comments. Hopefully, God forbid, we don't have another Waco on the border of Texas and California. God forbid. But I'd like to bring the audience's attention to an interesting book. They call it A Conspiracy by Larry Abraham. I don't know if you're familiar with the author. It was published in 1985. he talks about the conspiracy of a supposedly one world order to bring down the government that we know to not supposedly, but maybe a combination of Solinsky, communism, you name it. But again, it's called Call It a Conspiracy by Larry Abraham. I think your callers and yourself would find it a very interesting read, and you'd be shaken by the facts that it was published in '85.
Well, here's the thing about it. What the motivation is the multinational corporations. They don't like sovereign borders. The big multinationals want to basically be able to have control economically over countries so that it becomes international rather than having sovereign nations. Why? Because look at what's happening, for example, in China. The big multinationals like GE or Whirlpool or any of the companies that make appliances, they're going to sell a certain number of new dishwashers, washers and dryers, refrigerators in America. But with over 1 billion people in China, you get enough in the middle class. How many washers and dryers and refrigerators are they going to sell over there? They don't want borders getting in the way. They want to just reach people internationally. So they're instigating all of this to get rid of our borders and get rid of the integrity of sovereign nations. I thank you for the call, sir, and I appreciate it. And yeah, Larry Abraham was right on target. We go next to Nick. Hi, Nick. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO.
How you doing, Mike? I always like it when you're on.
Thank you.
Replacing the great Jeffrey Kuhner. I think you do an excellent job. I come from a suburban town called Weymouth, and I don't know the exact number, but there's been, in a lot of communities, there's been an inordinate number of deaths of young people from heroin and other drugs. This is not unique, okay? And a lot of it emanates from Mexico because the government there is corrupt, and I want to know, why are they our pals? They don't even belong to NATO, by the way, which is very interesting. But it's a corrupt government. The drugs could be stopped. The American government is complicit in this as well. Okay. Well,
the reason it can't be stopped is because a lot of the military guys get kickbacks on drugs in Mexico, so they look the other way.
Exactly. This could be stopped. And someone mentioned it earlier, and I'll get off. I'm a conservative, but I blame the Republicans. They should be the opposition, and they're not.
Well, that's why I read Boehner's statement. We'll see if he really follows through with the lawsuit. By the way, if you can believe this, 5 Americans in Murrieta, California, have now been arrested for their assembly protesting illegal immigrants coming into Murrieta, California. 5 Americans were arrested. They didn't arrest the illegal aliens for breaking the law, Title 8, Section 1325. They arrested the Americans. How about that one? Unbelievable. All right, we'll come back to your calls in 1 moment. Stay right there. We'll get them all at 617-266-6868. There is an open line. There shouldn't be. We should all be participating, everybody out there. The price of listening is participation. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at 617-266-6868. Boston's talk station, WRKO. It's 820. Stay with us. We're back at it. Good to have you with us. Mike Siegel in as we move right along. In for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. We get back to your calls, try to save this country from its leadership and the mistake that we made, not me and not you probably, but we as a nation made by re-electing this fellow to the White House. Steve is next. Steve, you're on with Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station, WRKO, in for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. It's nice to hear you. I'm amazed this man was reelected. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable. But anyway, what Obama and the rest of his crew does right is propaganda. It's unbelievable. That they're no longer liberals. They're progressive. What's right is wrong. That they play good word games. But
look, let's look at it this way. Look at it this way. If we have gay marriage, abortion for everybody, illegals entering the country anytime they want, government spending tons of money on food stamps and taking care of everybody who wants help, giving everybody government paid for health insurance or health care, that's where he is. And the other guy said he's a capitalist. He may be a capitalist with his own money, but he's a socialist with your money.
Yeah, right. And actually, that was in a book. I think it was The Bridge. That there was a time where Obama was at a event in Chicago when he was a state senator, and when it came time to make a donation, he didn't make one, and the Republican at the convention said, "Oh, you're only a socialist with other people's money," which is, goes back to the problem with socialism. Sooner or later, you run out of other people's money. But I don't think he should only be impeached. I think him and Eric Holder should be arrested and tried for treason. I mean, we get a Marine in Mexico who, with all accounts, served the country honorably, and you've got a soldier who was probably a deserter at best. He trades 5 terrorists for.
Look, the bottom line, let me tell you something. The bottom line is, you want to take Benghazi? Barack Obama was an unindicted co-conspirator in the murder of those 4 people. He should be held accountable for what's called involuntary manslaughter. He didn't participate. He didn't intend for them to die, but involuntarily, his actions and inaction allowed them to die. He's a disgrace. He allowed the death of 4 people to happen when he could have stopped it, and he didn't. He told the military to stand down. He didn't even participate in the conversations with his national security team while that was going on. We know all about that. He's a disgrace to the office and a disgrace to this nation. And everybody around the world, including Putin, including the Western European leaders, the German chancellor, they all know. Angela Merkel, she knows. He tried to get on her cell phone, for God's sake. I thank you for calling, sir. Good to talk to you. Let's go more of your calls as we get back to Joe in WRKO at Jeff Kuhner's program. Mike Siegel in. Hello, Joe.
Oh, good morning, Mike. Mike, it's obvious that the government does not know what to do with the illegal immigrants. It's really chaos. But you have all these people in the government, and you have how many millions, say 10 million or more Americans that support the illegal immigration, but no plan. Why not have all these people, the people in office, resign for office, go to these countries, organize the infrastructure and all the needs of the country instead of bringing the chaos here?
Listen, if you're asking me, first of all, you'll remember several years ago, I think it was 2009, Obama, on a Saturday afternoon, when it was not a strong news cycle, basically gave the order to stop building the fence across the southern border. That's when it stopped. There was a fence being built. Now it's only partially built so that people could still get through. And that's what he did proactively to stop the building of the fence. He didn't put anybody at the border. They're all 25 miles from the border. Closest to the border is ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Customs and Border Patrol. Customs and Border Patrol is really the one that's there mostly, and they're 25 miles away. Now they're all babysitters. They're all babysitters taking care of the children coming in illegally. And I say to ICE and I say to CBP, Customs and Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I say to all of the agents, all together you should stand up and be counted and not do this ridiculous babysitting. Stand up and say, no, we're not doing it. Then what happens? They're being used to go in and go after the people in Murrieta, California, who are protesting the illegals being here. Why is ICE and why is CBP being turned into agencies to enforce this policy that violates American law when they're supposed to keep illegals out? Somebody explain that to me. All right, let's go back to your calls. We start with Paul. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner, Paul, at WRKO. Good morning.
Michael, your voice is a little easier to take after July 4th weekend. Nothing against Jeff Kuhner, because I like Jeff extremely well. But here's a serious question right here. Are all these scandals that are taking place, are these all being done intentionally? Is this a much devious plot and scheme so people cannot pay attention to the big issues? I know we're on summer vacation, so the vast majority of people in the wealthy communities, Weston, Wellesley, Dover, Sherborne, Lincoln, Sudbury, as long as their family is not hurt by illegal immigrants. We had 2 people die on Beacon Street on a sidewalk. There was a car And the person who was driving, we don't even know. The police are so over their head because they're pointing the fingers at the woman. The woman said the guy was driving. The guy said the woman was driving. So this isn't going to hit home until people in the wealthier communities actually have some violence.
I think you're right about that, because even with the drug problem, as long as it was confined in the 60s to the inner cities, it wasn't dealt with by Congress until it got to the suburbs. But let me give you one statistic that makes the point for you. 75% of the murder warrants in Los Angeles County are for illegal aliens. How about that? How does that grab you? 75% of them. In other words, people are dying at the hands of illegals who shouldn't have been here in the first place, so those people would be alive today. I know of a case of a deputy sheriff. He stopped a guy on a traffic stop, goes over to the window, asks for the license and registration. The guy blows his brains out. He kills him. The deputy sheriff left the wife and 2 kids behind, and this was an illegal alien about 18 years old driving that car who killed that fellow, and that's thanks to this policy of Barack Obama. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner, 617-266-6868 at Boston's talk station WRKO. It's 8:30. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to be with you as we are here for Jeff Kuhner, who's on vacation. Mike Siegel in. By the way, I'll be here tomorrow and Wednesday as well, so hope you'll join us as Jeff takes a well-deserved vacation at Boston's talk station, WRKO. We're talking about really the preservation of America and surviving Barack Obama. It is a challenge. And we haven't really gotten into this as much, but one of the problems is the Republican Party is a bunch of lambs going to slaughter. They sit back and yawn about these problems and do nothing about them. They get walked on in Congress, left, right, and sideways. Obama knows it. In fact, when Boehner started talking about suing the president, Obama said, go ahead and sue me. Couldn't care less. These guys have to start standing strong, firm, and tall. No nonsense from the Republican Party. They're arguably more of a problem than Democrats. Democrats, you expect this from. Republicans are supposed to stand up and represent the people. Okay, let's go back to your calls and get your comments about saving this nation. Harold, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I'm calling because I'm really quite disturbed as to what's going on in the country today, as I think most of the citizens. On the other hand, the facts seem to indicate a very simple solution, or a very simple reason for all of this. I'm afraid the president is trying to destroy America.
I agree with you.
All the things he's done fall into that pattern. And he's playing the rich against the poor, disregard for wealth, disregard on the Benghazi, discriminating against the military. There's immigration issue. All these issues add up to this one thing. And for all of us, if we don't get this under control, we are going to be in a dictatorship, because I think his aim is to get us so mixed up and so loading the system that there's only one alternative for him, and that's to declare martial law. As soon as that happens, whatever freedoms you think you have, you've lost, and America is doomed at that point in time with a dictator like him, and that's what he can do, I think.
Well, let me share with you. The London Daily Mail published a piece, and unfortunately you don't get it from the mainstream media here. According to the London Daily Mail, Obama is backing Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren as his potential successor. Basically, it'd be a snub to Hillary Clinton. Apparently, he's concerned that Hillary would undo many of his policies. Believe it or not, as radical as she is, she's more moderate than he is. So he's worried about that. So now Elizabeth Warren would energize the left wing of the Democratic Party more than the centrist Hillary Clinton, he says. And that would be the same way Obama did it in 2008. And this is all being said, by the way, by Edward Klein, who writes this piece for the New York Post, but it wasn't really in the other mainstream media. New York Times wouldn't do this. Washington Post wouldn't do it. L.A. Times wouldn't do it. So Klein, who wrote the book about the president, about the argument or the battle between the Clintons and the Obamas, says that now he's supporting Elizabeth Warren for president. Quietly, that is. He wrote the book Blood Feud, the Clintons versus the Obamas, and apparently Klein's sources say that Obama's promised Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, his support if she runs, and he's authorized Valerie Jarrett, who basically is his alter ego, to convince Senator Warren to join the race for president, because she would carry on the legacy of Barack Obama. Now, look, I got to say to the people in Massachusetts, shame on Massachusetts for making her a senator and putting her in the position of getting the support of Obama, maybe, or if she runs for president, maybe. And then, can you imagine getting stuck with Elizabeth Warren for president? Are you kidding me? By the way, according to the report, the Obamas believe that Elizabeth Warren sees things from the same ideological point of view as they do. She's a committed progressive, I call her radical, who, like Obama, wants to transform America into a European-style democratic socialist state. So there you are. Elizabeth Warren could be the person Barack Obama supports for president. What do you make of that one? Glad to get your thoughts about it as we go back to the calls. Tom, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I think that, like a lot of problems in America, we need to consider the money aspect. Somebody's making money. Where there's problems, there's often corrupt money being made. The question is, who's making the money in this deal with immigration? I'll listen.
The big businesses around the country. Look, the Republicans and Democrats are both to blame for the immigration problem over the years, even before Obama. The Republicans have looked the other way at illegal immigration because their big business buddies pay low wages to illegals and save money on all of the benefits. They don't pay health care. They don't pay any of the other retirement money or any of that. They pay them low salaries, sometimes under the table, below minimum wage. So Republicans were perfectly happy for their big business friends, farmers in California and elsewhere, as well as businesses where people do cheap labor, to bring them in and work for them. And the Democrats want the votes, because they're going to vote for Democrats. They want big government. They want entitlement programs. They're at the lower economic levels. They're going to vote for Democrats. So we get caught in the middle because both Democrat and Republican politicians play that ugly game, and we get stuck with the whole thing. Mike, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hey, Mike, good morning. I take issue with what you said at the very beginning of this segment, which was that we need Republicans to stand firm. I think what we need is an opposition party. Call them whatever you want, but Republicans aren't going to do it, and the reason for it is they have no history for it. And if you look at the staffers and I guess underlings of Mitch McConnell, his office has the highest percentage of individuals who leave his office to go into lobby. And John Boehner himself is going to follow past speakers, Hastert and other guys like Trent Lott, and go into lobbying and make sure that their own careers are secured after they leave Congress. So there is no motivation for anybody that in the Republican Party in a position of power really to do anything. And look at the Cantor race as a perfect example. I mean, Dave Brat knocks off Eric Cantor, and what does the Republican Party in the House do? And they basically replace Cantor with Kevin McCarthy, who's Cantor's clone. And if you look at the individuals who McCarthy brought with him, the Heritage Action Foundation has labeled all of them with a 60% conservative rating or lower. So none of these guys are going to do anything because they're all in the pockets of big business. And one other point is,
well, let me just respond to that before you get to the next point, and I'll let you do that. But look, take the guys like Rand Paul, the so-called libertarian. He fudges on immigration. He fudges on even showing voter ID. Doesn't want to have people show prove they're citizens, which is insane to take that. So there's Rand Paul. Jeb Bush said initially that you shouldn't get a path to citizenship if you're illegal. Then he wrote that in a book. Then a few weeks later, after the book came out, he changed his mind. Yeah, there should be a path to citizenship. And he called it an act of love for illegals to come here and make money to send home. In other words, There's who's out there that's going to stand tall for the American. The only guy I can think of is Ted Cruz. Who else besides Ted Cruz?
Well, I'm a big Ted Cruz and Mike Lee fan, and there's this perversion for some reason for Republicans and the Republican Party to reach out and include certain demographics of people, but history shows us, I mean, look at Ronald Reagan passed amnesty with the promise that the border would be secured.
Right.
I want everybody in the audience to go, because I can't do this for you. You need to go look at what percentage of the, quote, Hispanic, which I don't believe in either in the old Nixon term. I think that's a big joke to begin with. But look at what percentage of population George H.W. Bush got in 1988 from the, quote, Hispanic population 2 years after Ronald Reagan granted amnesty to all of these individuals. Go look at the percentage. I guarantee you'll be shocked. Because what happens is these, quote, Hispanics, this population of people, they all, unfortunately, the lower socioeconomic, and they will not vote Republican, conservative. They just won't. I brought that up last time I filled in for Jeff. And I'm sure Jeff has brought it up. There's no question. McCain is an idiot. He's a great military hero, but he's a complete buffoon, thinking that if you support illegal immigrants getting amnesty of some form, that you're going to get votes. You're insane if you think that. They're going to vote Democrat no matter what. And one final thing before let me go is there's this push out there to grant these individuals some sort of temporary citizen or status without the actual chance of actually becoming permanent citizens. What do you think the American Civil Liberties Union is going to do once they find out that there's a, quote, underclass, without the potential of ever becoming a citizen in this country? What do you think is going to happen to that? What do you think the court system's going to do once we have 10, 12, 15 million people in this country that are paying taxes and don't have the eligibility for certain benefits and don't have eligibility to ever become a citizen? What do you think the American Civil Liberties Union is going to do with that? They're going to fight to get them the citizenship. Exactly. So this is just some big scheme. My solution, just secure the border. The law was passed in 2006. Fund it, secure the border, and then we'll sort out everybody who's in here, and we can figure it out from there. One step at a time, secure the border, and we'll move on. I thank you, sir, for calling. Good to have you with us. 8:45. Let's go to our next caller. Ronnie is next. Ronnie, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning to you, Mike. Great to hear you with us again.
Thank you.
If Republicans were really serious about opposing this illegal immigration, you'd think that every Republican congressman and senator would be out there pointing out the fact that all of these illegal immigrants are coming from completely leftist, progressive countries that have already implemented all of the progressives' dream initiatives. I mean, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, I thought they had universal free health care. None of their citizens are allowed to own guns. The government controls the school system like they want to do with Common Core here. All of these big, giant progressive initiatives are already in full effect in these countries, and look at what the end result is. Poverty, disease, vast levels of uneducation, and, how hard is it for a Republican to simply point out this is the end result of progressivism? Let me make a point to you. The Republicans are pure, unadulterated cowards for the most part. I use the word coward unequivocally. I'll tell you why. Why shouldn't John Boehner go over to Murrieta, California, with the leadership of the House, with all the rest of that crowd, with every Republican member of the Congress, Senate and House together? Why doesn't John McCain go there and stand with the people protesting? Stand there and protest the illegals coming in. Why don't they do that? They could do that. You think the feds are going to go knock down members of Congress? You think they're going to bully them? And if they do, the boomerang effect on Obama would be huge. He's not going to do it. No way, no how. The Republicans in Congress have to stand up and become more rowdy. In the old days, in the 1850s, when they were debating about federal rights versus states' rights, and you had Daniel Webster, and you had Henry Clay, and John Calhoun from North Carolina, Henry Clay from Kentucky, and they all debated. The Southern senators, of course, wanted states' rights, and Webster wanted federal rights, and they bantered back and forth. Sometimes they get into fisticuffs. Where are the Republicans to stand up for the American people? Why don't they get their rear ends down there to places where it's on the front line and do so? That a member of Congress from Texas wanted to go in and see the kids where they were, and the feds wouldn't let them do it. The guys from the
Border Patrol agency from ICE and from Customs and Border Patrol wouldn't let the congressman inspect. They said, well, you have to make an appointment for later in July. Are you kidding me? You should have 100 Republican members of Congress going down there together collectively and let those thugs trying to hold them back use force against members of Congress. Let's see what happens then. That's what you got to do. Let's go to your calls as we continue along. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. And we go next to Ed. You're on with Mike Siegel here at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that when we're talking about Elizabeth Warren, she's horrible, I know that. But everybody should be aware. What's going on now is the concerted effort on the part of the left to paint Hillary Rodham Clinton as a moderate. She is not a moderate. She's far left as Barack Obama, perhaps more. She's just painting herself in a different light right now. They're trying to get her to look much more moderate than she really is.
I think, first of all, I don't disagree with you, but I will say this. As far as I'm concerned, what she did with Benghazi and then said to the Senate committee, what does it matter now as to how they died? She's a disgrace. She should be isolated and sent away in isolation somewhere out of public life forever. The audacity for her to try to run for office is a disgrace after what she did at that hearing and her refusal to give Christopher Stevens, the ambassador, more security. She helped to cause the murder of those 4 people. And when she said, why does it matter? If I were on the Senate committee, I would have said, Madam Secretary, what if it were Chelsea standing there and she got blown away? What would you say then? It wouldn't matter then if it were Chelsea? Are you kidding? These people were all children of some parents. And she stood there with that disgraceful comment. That alone should disqualify her from public office. Number to Boston is 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Your calls are next. Let's get those lines jammed. Stay with us. All right, folks, good morning to you. Welcome back in as we are at 8:55 at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner as we talk about this nation being eroded away from its standards, from its values, from its position as a world power, economically and militarily. We haven't even talked about the military reduction of expenditures and the diminution of the military's strength in this nation. Haven't talked about the economy and its collapse, where 20 million plus Americans are not working, where the highest number of adult Americans ever are not looking for jobs, not working, don't believe they're going to find a job. We're in a catastrophic state, and this president wants to bring in thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of young people as well as adults into this country illegally, and here we are. Arthur is next. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning, Arthur.
Good morning, Mike. It's a great topic, but unfortunate circumstance. Everywhere you go today, I don't care where it is, you're not being served or taken care of by anyone who's American. There's no store you go into, no place you get service. It's just that's why Americans don't have jobs. I mean, and there's not 11 million illegals here. There's over 40 million by now.
Could be.
I mean, they've been using that 11 million figure for 10 years.
Yeah, I agree.
To make it sound like there's not that many.
I agree.
I don't understand who these people are that can go out there. I saw John McCain say we have to fix our broken immigration system. It's a broken enforcement system, not a broken immigration system. And to be honest with you, I've had enough of legal immigration too. There's too much of that.
Yeah, well, look, we could, the problem is we can't even get to that debate because we have the other problems so rampant that we're trying to put out fires all over the place. We first have to deal with the illegal problem, and John McCain has been the ultimate buffoon, buying into the Democrats, thinking that if he supports, but he has called names of Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and others of that ilk. He's called them names because they don't agree with him on immigration. Now Rand Paul's changed his tune a little bit, but who was John McCain to be so condescending as to take that position? And he lied to the people of Arizona by saying he would enforce the laws about immigration, and then he wouldn't do it now if his life depended on it. He's a disgrace to this nation. Thank you for calling, sir. Good to talk to you. All right, let's go to Dorothy. You're on with Mike Siegel, Dorothy, at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. Listen, I'm calling because I'm telling you something about Texas. North Dallas used to be a middle-class area. Very nice middle-class homes. Let me tell you something that's happened there. It has gone down. My parents were buried in a Catholic cemetery near Webb Chapel Lane. We went there recently. That area looks like Tijuana. Walnut Hill, Valley View Lane, Farmers Branch, all gone. It's a crying shame. Remember, the Alamo used to be a phrase that Texans used in tough situations. Remember what happened there. They were overrun. They didn't run themselves. They ran out of ammunition. Can you make a comparison? They ran out of the help they needed for their own. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. And when they caught Santa Ana, they wanted to kill him because of what he did there.
I appreciate the point, and I think there has been degradation. You're making the point. That's the problem. 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Let's get your calls at WRKO.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
Executing assigned host duties flawlessly because I can't do wrong.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. Hour number 4 it is here on the Jeff Kuhner program. Mike Siegel in for Jeff. As we've been talking about, I guess really the facts of the case that Barack Obama now has clearly shown himself to be an absolute purveyor of the destruction of the United States of America as we know it, turning it into a third world country if he can, bringing in illegals left, right, and sideways, spending more money raising the national debt ceiling to levels that are intolerable, that your great-great-great-grandchildren will not be able to pay off. And here we are dealing with the consequence. The most astonishing part of this is that the people in Murrieta, California are standing up and protesting against illegal immigrants being brought into their town, and the federal thugs are going to go in there, ICE and CBP, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which should be saying we're not going to do this, because their job should be to keep illegals out. Instead, they're going to be there protecting the illegals from Americans. In other words, we become the problem. The illegals are the ones we spend the money on to protect. Sly is with us at 617-266-6868. Sly, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Hey, Mike. I had to call in this morning, but I think his name was Ed. A guy called in a little while ago, and he touched on what I was gonna say. Do not believe all this BS about what they're writing about, the Clintons and how different they are from Obama. The reason why they're doing this is because the Clintons, more than anything, want to get back into the White House, and they know how bad this administration is. They know how bad it's going to get in the next 2 years. Under Obama, it's going to get worse and worse, and they want to be separated from that. They want, exactly like Ed said, they want to come across as the moderate. To say that Liz Warren is more in line with what Obama wants to do, and Hillary Clinton may not be. That's actually going to destroy Liz Warren's reputation in the next couple of years, and it's going to help. Hillary Clinton, as far as, a lot of the people that don't stay in tune to what's really going on. I guess people like us, people like the people in this audience are very, very much in tune to what's going on in the country, but a lot of people are not. So they're going to hear these things, and they're going to say, oh, Hillary Clinton's the sensible one, and they're going to be able to see clearly the damage that Obama is doing, and they're going to, this is all a trick.
Well, it may be, Sly, but the The reality is that Elizabeth Warren is a complete wacko, and she is way out there. Hillary Clinton is also, don't get me wrong, but she wouldn't be talking to Iran and kissing the rear end of the Iranians and the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, the way Obama is. I'm not going to defend Hillary Clinton by any means. I wouldn't vote for her if my life depended on it. On the other hand, I don't think she's as radical as Elizabeth Warren, and I think Elizabeth Warren is, in fact, more in tune with Obama. Now, whether they're using her as a shill may be the case, because what they may be, you could be correct about that. They could be very well saying, look, let's talk about Elizabeth Warren, and then Hillary looks like a moderate. Could well be, and it might help Hillary in that regard, but I wouldn't vote for Hillary ever because of what she did about Benghazi. She was culpable unintentionally for the murder of 4 people in Benghazi. She's a disgrace, and that alone should take care of it. But in terms of political philosophy, Elizabeth Warren is as bad as Barack Obama. John, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning. You know, do you believe one man did all this? One man did all this trouble.
Well, because one of the reasons is, John, that he was willing to take on the Congress and go past his authority. Look, the Supreme Court even has knocked him down, 13 times, and several times unanimously. He appointed those people to the National Labor Relations Board unconstitutionally. He has done... He tried to pass net neutrality. The court said you can't do it. Trying to take control of the Internet. In other words, there are several areas in which he's done things that go beyond the Constitution. And that's wrong. Obviously, that's why I think... What do you folks think about the idea of impeachment? As to whether the president ought to face an article of impeachment, bill of particulars for impeachment. Let me make one point about that. Because of what's happening now with this immigration is the tipping point for me. This is the end. And one of the areas in which he's certainly impeachable is with the IRS. Because Richard Nixon faced an impeachment. He never got impeached in the House. He resigned first, and he probably would have been impeached. But the fact was that he tried to use the IRS for his own political reasons. They wouldn't do it because the IRS bureaucrats are Democrats, ironically, and they didn't go along with him, but he tried. So one of the articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon was IRS abuse of power. Well, isn't that what Barack Obama's done, and he's done it successfully, stopping conservative groups from getting tax-exempt status? He's committed impeachable offenses, and Boehner sits there on his posterior end doing nothing about it. You know, even if the Senate under Harry Reid would not entertain an impeachment from the House, at least the House ought to stand on its principle and do it. And they could. Let's go back to your calls. Kevin is next. Kevin, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. It's Kevin over here in Newton.
Yes, sir.
I've been listening to the show this morning. I very, very rarely call these shows, but I wanted to point out something. That if people do not get involved and they can talk and listen. I have a business over here in Newton for about 40 years now, and I've listened to a lot of the folks out of Newton, and they have this entitled attitude that what they believe is the way people should live their lives. And again, I was pretty much a moderate Democrat back just before Ronald Reagan, and I wanted to point out that we had 2 overrides in the city of Newton, and immigration is a big part of what I'm pointing out. I'll get to my point. That we were able to diffuse the first override by getting involved. We talked and talked and talked, and we ended up in the person's living room to try to get to the people to understand that the city of Newton had the money. We have the ideas, but we don't get involved. We have to become involved with our representatives and congressmen and flood them. And the people down in Marietta, wherever these folks are, I thank God they are the real people that like the Tea Party people. I'm not a Tea Partier, but I love this country. I spent 1 year in Vietnam. I loved my flag, and I'm very, very frustrated now the way I see people denigrate the idea that if I have an idea different from them, they will look at me as the enemy.
Well, it's unfortunate, and liberals do that. Look, let me tell you something. if the left wing had its way, and I appreciate the call, Kevin, thank you, and keep doing your great work, too, as a small business owner. If the left wing had its way, there wouldn't be free speech in this country. No way, no how, period. Wouldn't happen. And the reason it wouldn't happen is because they don't want to have to debate anybody. They don't want to have to be accountable for making a case for why they believe in these nonsense radical ideologies. Free speech would be gone. Obama has all of the mainstream media with him, and he had the nerve to criticize Fox. The one area that presents another point of view, and he criticizes the one, even though he's got NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN all in his pocket, he wants to criticize Fox. It's shameful. They don't want any other point of view. None. That's why he wanted to get control of the Internet. We go next to Tony. Hi, Tony. You're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner, WRKO. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mike. Thank you for taking my call. I have a comment and a question, and I'll try to take my answer off the air. Here's my comment. As an African American, I am ashamed that the first African American president has done this to my country. I say my country because I am an American before I am an African. I am hurt every time he opens his mouth. It hurts my heart to know that my grandson has to look towards him and pray that he is not in any way, shape, or form like that man. That's my comment. Here's my question.
Before you get to your question, I appreciate the comment, but let's look at it the other way. Let's hope. Let's turn a lemon into a lemonade. What about the ticket in 2016? President Dr. Ben Carson, Vice President Dr. Condoleezza Rice. What a ticket that would be. 2 African Americans, 1 woman. How about that?
No, Tom Cruise. There's only two words. Tom Cruise. That's it. 2016. If you don't support him, we're gonna be Mexico. We're gonna be France. We're gonna be Germany.
Wait, Tom Cruise, the actor?
Oh no, actually, is it Tom Cruise? What is his?
Oh, you mean Ted Cruz?
Yes, my apologies. I meant to say Ted Cruz.
Oh yeah, he's great, but I think Ben Carson and Condoleezza Rice would make a great ticket also.
I would prefer Ted Cruz.
All right, Ted Cruz is good, terrific. Yeah.
Here's my question. What can we do as the average citizen to start the impeachment process? I don't need any more evidence that this president is against me as an American citizen. What can we do as individual American citizens to move the conversation towards impeachment and then actually get impeachment? Because Fast and Furious, the IRS, a billion bullets. I can't say it anymore. A billion bullets.
Yep.
So that's my question, so I'll take that off the air.
All right, the answer to that question, and anybody should do this, I was working with the Black Republican group, Black Republican Americans. Frances Rice is a woman who's in Florida, who's the head of that organization. If you Google articles of impeachment for Barack Obama from the Black Republicans, you'll find that you'll be able to bring up after you Google or Yahoo search or whatever you want to use, Bing, I don't know, whatever one, MSN, you'll get to it. And they have 10 specific articles of impeachment. They asked me to read them, and I did, and so they've got those available in audio, and you hear me reading the 10 articles of impeachment from the Black Republicans of America. And that's where you start. And you might, at that point, definitely contact your members of the United States House and start it there, just the House, because the House is where an impeachment proceeding starts, with a bill of particulars having articles of impeachment in it. And if that passes the House, it goes on to the Senate, which becomes the jury, and the trials in the Senate. So go to the Google the Black Republican articles of impeachment of Barack Obama. You'll find those 10 articles, and then take that as the base and contact your own member of the United States House from your district and absolutely demand that they consider impeachment of this president. That's if people did that across this country. Look, members of Congress don't do things that are risque unless they know that there are large numbers of people supporting them. You got to go out and do it. That's why it's vitally important to do that. And I thank you for the question, too. We'll come right back to your calls at 617-266-6868. There is an open line. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, do you support the impeachment of the president? Do you support Boehner filing a lawsuit in federal court against the president to carry out his office properly? Do you support the notion that Barack Obama has gone beyond his authority and moved on a path to destroy this nation? Good to have you with us. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. Good to have you with us, and a good morning to you as we get your day started. Hope you've been with us through the program. We'll be back again tomorrow and Wednesday. We'll continue with this, trying to save this nation, at least from the point of view of the American people, and not of the Guatemalans or El Salvadorians or the Haitians or people from Honduras, Mexico. Seems like there's more concern for those people than Americans from Barack Obama and his thugs in the White House. 9:22 at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Back to your calls we go. Gerald is next. Gerald, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to hear you on the radio.
Thank you.
Terrific. Now, here's where the problem begins. And this is where the problem starts, and this is where you correct it. Your neighbor, the people you work with, the people you talk to, they elect these liberal Democrats, okay? You blame the people that elect the liberal Democrats, not someone like Duval Patrick, but the people that elect them. Now, what do you do about that? Well, you have this lying Liz Warren, who's a senator. She said she was an Indian, and people vote for this liar.
She was 1/8 Indian, I think.
My foot she was. She's as much an Indian as I am.
And I understand. I mean, she was very obscure, whatever it was. Well, she was a liar. I mean, there's no question about it.
All right, so the people elected a liar. It didn't matter. And they didn't matter. They just see Democrat, and they vote for him.
How do you change that? And, I've been around the Commonwealth of Massachusetts since, 1970. And I was teaching at Emerson College in the 70s. How do you get around it? How do you deal with it? I have no idea. How do you get around trying to get people in the Commonwealth to vote sensibly? Not just Republican knee-jerk reaction, but sensible. And I realize, look, Romney was elected, Frank Sargent was elected, William Weld was elected. Republicans get elected, but not to the Senate. I mean, Ed Brooke, you want to go back far enough? Ed Brooke was a Republican. But Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, they're so far to the left, Joseph Stalin looks like a conservative next to Ed Markey or Elizabeth Warren. And this state elects them, and I don't know the answer. As long as I've been around this state, I have no idea why people vote the way they do in this state. It's just this knee-jerk reaction, and it's outrageous. All right, back to other calls, and thank you for being there. Frank, you're on WRKO with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. How are you today?
Okay.
Good. I just I'll try and be as brief as I can. There's just too many issues out there. But let's call it what it is. We're under invasion. There's no doubt about it.
It's a foreign invasion of all these young kids. And of course, they make it young kids so that we look like bad guys to be opposed to their coming in illegally.
Of course, it goes deeper than that. We all know that also if we were thinking people. But I would say when I have friends in Texas, friends in Arizona, and as they say, it's how foolish is it that when they say, if you build a 10-foot wall or a tunnel, they will build 11, 12-foot ladder. And it's just as simple. But
no, wait a minute. Before you get past that point, let me make a point to you.
Sure.
I've been to the West Bank in Israel several times, and I've seen the fence that the Israelis built on their own territory with their borders of Syria and Jordan and Lebanon. There's a 30-foot fence. And the way it works is that if anything touches the fence, it triggers an impulse at the IDF, Israeli Defense Force bunker that's underground near the fence, and they have computers, and it tells them exactly where that came from, where the touching of the fence came from. They don't ever get homicide bombings from there because it protects them. The only time they get any kind of indicator from that fence, sometimes a squirrel runs up against the fence and triggers it. So they get the IDF gets the impulse from the squirrel, and the guys who are patrolling go out there and they see these little squirrels running around. But they don't get homicide bombings. If we put up a fence like that, we'd stop a lot of the illegal immigration, and shameful that Obama stopped the building of that fence.
Let me interrupt just for a second, please, Mike, and I'll just get my point and I'll get off the air for you, okay? And I know it's not quite the same equation with the borders in Israel and the border of the United States, and it's not quite the equation when you get the massive people that are coming in on all ways, and they have a religious problem over there also. But what my thing, for the tools, and I did this as an advisor in Vietnam, and you expand the perimeter, not just with boots on the ground, but with paws on the ground. You send out the dogs, and they don't take vacations. They don't go to Dunkin's for coffee breaks. If the dogs are out there and they go after these people that are illegally crossing the borders, you're going to see that thing dry up like a small lake in Arizona. And
absolutely. And if you start arresting people who cross, you'll start to see that as well. But as long as we let them in, they're going to keep coming. Look, thank you for calling. You could build a 30-foot fence like Israel has, and it would work. But Obama stopped the building of that fence after he took office. Thank you for calling, sir. Good to talk to you. Sharon, you're next. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for answering the call. I have a couple of questions for you, and one's related to the other. Regarding the people who are in charge of all of these border patrols and immigration laws that has been talked about for about 3 years now, seriously, isn't there any way to impose on your congressman or senator to get this thing moving, or have petitions out where this can go on public ballot? Is that possible at all? Because obviously they can't move to do anything. Secondly,
before you get to the second, let me answer the first. Number one, Massachusetts is an initiative state, so you could do an initiative. Barbara Anderson did many of those on tax issues, so that could be done. But the problem in Massachusetts is, look, the state elected Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren. I mean, how much more left-wing can you get than that?
That's correct, but it doesn't mean that we can't impose our ideas and start getting other states moving on these issues.
Well, what you want to do then, and look, let me explain one thing to you. You make a great point, and I appreciate that. I've had a lot of contact with Amy Kramer, who runs the Tea Party Express. She founded it. And she was a Delta Airlines flight attendant, had retired, and she started going on Facebook and Twitter and complaining about the deficits and the national debt ceiling keep being raised and all of that. All of a sudden, she started getting people responding, and it became like the finger out of the dike. Thousands of people started responding to her. So she started the Tea Party Express, and it's a huge organization now because people all over the country got involved. If you wanted to start some sort of immigration organization, you could do that. By going online. If you want to join one that's in existence, I recommend FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform. I recommend Numbers USA. Those are both organizations based in D.C. I recommend Centers for Immigration Studies. They do great work on quantifying the problem we have. All of those organizations are in favor of controlling immigration, and you could join them or start your own group because it's easy to do now with online Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or any of those organizations. How about that? I appreciate the call. People can do that if they choose to. It's 9:30 at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Your calls are welcome at 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Stay with us. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to have you with us. A good morning to you as we are here on the Jeff Kuhner program. Mike Siegel in at WRKO in Boston, 9:38 in the morning. We go back to your calls and trying to preserve this nation, trying to keep it in a level of stability that will be destroyed if this wanton and reckless and irresponsible importation of illegals continues. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. All right, your calls, comments, thoughts, and reactions. It's your country. What do you make of it? Stephen, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you. Stephen, good morning.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Oh, by the way, Massachusetts did elect a Republican to the United States Senate 4 years ago, but we quickly found out that he was an empty suit. And
well, that's right.
Defeated 2 years earlier.
And it was all on the Obama care thing, and then he moved to New Hampshire. Figured that one out.
Yeah, but that's not why I called. Earlier this morning, a caller cited evidence that the president was involved and orchestrated this wave of young immigrants coming to the border by citing a Department of Homeland Security request for proposals in magazines that was offering proposals to escort immigrants to the border. That story was first reported by a conspiracy nut talk show host who also believes that the government was involved in 9/11 and that homosexuality is caused by the plastic in juice boxes. It was then picked up by the Drudge Report, and it's gone around Wingnut Radio for the last 3 weeks. And irresponsible talk show hosts continue to advocate that, and it's a lie. And after that caller cited that totally erroneous story, your response was, yes, he was definitely complicit.
First of all, the point the caller made was that there were things published in Central American newspapers about coming here. That's number one.
No,
it wasn't about any...
That's wrong.
Well, how do you know? Have you been down there to read the newspaper, sir?
No, I looked at the request for the proposal.
I'm not asking you whether... I'm asking you whether you looked at the... Did you look at the news? First of all, say what you will about that. I say there's no doubt. There's no accident when tens of thousands of kids on their own come into this country. You got to be kidding if you think that's an accident. You got to be kidding if you think it wasn't done with the support of the administration. It's just common sense.
Meanwhile, the administration is running public service announcements on television in Central America, advising people not to come here and the dangers of coming here.
Well, first of all, that doesn't mean much when you let the people in and they watch from Central America how these kids are being brought here, housed here, taken care of here, and that American citizens who protest are the ones that are held accountable for crimes by the thugs from the Customs and Border Protection and Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Thank you for calling, but don't give me a waste of time about thinking that the administration's trying to stop it. That's nonsense. He hasn't tried to stop immigration illegally coming into this country since he got into office. And then the only ones they call as being deported are the ones that are at the border that they say don't come in. You got to be kidding, sir. I mean, to try to defend Barack Obama on enforcing immigration law is like trying to say that Adolf Hitler should get the Nobel Peace Prize. All right, let's go to Russ next. Russ, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. First of all, it is outrageous the fact that you have patriotic Americans trying to defend our borders, and by defending the borders, they get arrested.
Yep.
Now, I saw the movie this weekend by Mr. D'Souza.
America, yeah.
Okay? And I'm going to make a request to all of us that are Radio Free USA listeners. We need to take a non-hardcore progressive liberal as your guest to the show to let them see that movie. And hopefully we can convert them back to being patriotic Americans.
You know, of course, that Dinesh D'Souza was prosecuted by Eric Holder in the Justice Department as a punishment for putting out that film. You know about that, right? Because he was. And that was the sad part of that story, is that he got prosecuted for having money given to campaigns by others that he was going to cover. And he acknowledged it was inappropriate. But how many Democrats have done that, for goodness sake? They don't ever get Did anybody at the IRS get prosecuted for the criminal activity of abusing the power of the IRS? Not one person. Shameful is what it is. We go next to Ben. Ben, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good.
I'd like to bring up a
situation or a comparison, the fact that you're talking about impeaching, I don't even want to mention his name, our president, and I actually want to mention to Jeff Kuhner that I'm almost tired of hearing him using the adjective dear leader, just the adjective. But the thing that I want to bring up is several young people, college people, voted for him the first time. And most Americans have a selective memory or a very short memory as to what happens. And there's talk about Hillary Clinton running for president. A lot of these young people that voted for this idiot president should be refreshed in memory as to what happened to her husband. He was impeached on minor things in comparison to what this president has done. I mean, he was impeached for what? Perjury and obstruction of justice.
Right, but you know what? Look, I don't want to get into a long thing about Bill Clinton, but he also received a donation from Johnny Chung at the White House, which is illegal to receive $50,000 in a public federal building for a campaign. You're not supposed to do that. Johnny Chung, first interview he did in this country was with me, and he admitted he gave $50,000 in cash to Hillary Clinton's secretary, Miss Smith, I believe her name was, and she wound up going to France to live because she didn't want to get prosecuted for taking the money. It was a corrupt administration. They should have gotten prosecuted for that, for turning over the Panama Canal to the Hong Kong company that was going to be controlled by the People's Republic of China, by giving the Costco Naval Station in Long Beach, California to the Chinese in exchange for the donations that Clinton got from the Chinese illegally. All of that was corrupt. The whole thing with Monica Lewinsky was just a sham. The other stuff was more important, never got done. I thank you for calling, and that's the sad part of that. He committed legitimately serious violations as president did Bill Clinton, but not even close to what this guy's committed. I mean, what Bill Clinton did was peanuts compared to Obama's violations. John, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner, from Barack
Mike,
Obama. Hello.
You and Jeff, I like very much as a person. I know you love your country, okay? So never criticize that. But I wish that you will, because I'm tired of calling up because the other clowns, Tom and Tom, wouldn't listen, and Jeff doesn't seem to pick it up. There is a book out that you must read if you want to save your country. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. Did you read it?
No. Who wrote it?
Okay, Edward Griffin. Just give you an idea what happened. I said to a friend of mine...
Is that G. Edward Griffin, by the way?
What's that?
Is it G. Edward Griffin?
Yeah, I believe so.
Because he wrote a book about Laetrile, actually.
That's right. I have that book, too. Absolutely. Yeah. So someday we'll discuss the medical scams, okay? Because I'm a living witness of 10 times I've solved medical problems without their help. I'm just on the verge of solving another one, and if it's true, I will sue the hospital for $10 million. But anyway, forget that. My point is this. If you don't read the right books and your people calling in, they won't get the point. See, we know about Barack Obama and all this stuff, okay? But it's the people behind the scenes that control everything. Without him, they'll put some other shrill in there. See?
Well, you know who they are. It's Tom Steyer, the billionaire Democrat. By the way, Harry Reid says there's no billionaire Democrats. What a liar. Okay, I mean, Tom Steyer is one. Tom Steyer just said he's going to spend $100 million to elect Democrats. $100 million.
I'll show you how far it goes back and who was the power. Read this book, and it's about the Bolshevik Revolution, who funded it, okay? The man's name is Gary Allen. A lot of people won't read history books because they're very boring. I guarantee you these books are not boring. Every page is like a detective story, and the name of the book is The Rockefeller File. Okay.
But you see, the point, that's fine, but the point I would make to you is that those are excellent, but you could also turn around and say that everything is available with regard to the Obama administration's violation of the Constitution, violation of law, misuse of power, abuse of power, overreaching of power. All of it's online. I mean, there's all kinds of availability of information if people want to take the time to do it. I thank you for the call, but that's really where it is. Reading the books is great. I think you mentioned them, and that's great if people want to read them. But I would say to you that on a day-to-day basis, if you want to be an American who's informed and who wants to protect the sanctity of this nation, then you're going to also be able to do it online. And look, I get a lot of stuff from Europe because they don't publish it here. and it's easy to get online. We're at 617-266-6868. That's the number to Boston. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. Love to get calls from patriotic Americans at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Back we are, folks. Good to be here with all of you at 9:54. A good morning to you. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. We're trying to save this country. Maybe talk radio around the country can help do that. I know there are many hosts as distressed about what's happening with the immigration problem as we're hearing this morning from all of you. We'll try to have some guests on tomorrow morning from immigration-type organizations that can articulate very clearly the problems with this border issue and these tens of thousands of kids coming into the country. Meantime, let's go back to your calls. First of all, Lucy, good morning. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner, Lucy, at WRKO.
Good morning, and I hope the traffic in the background isn't bothering you, but I did pull over. I'm concerned about the talk about impeachment, number one, because it's really not going to happen. It does fire up some people, but we are all very angry, very disgusted, and probably some people are depressed. And the key is to get out and vote, to only spread facts, not rumors, not innuendo, because if we do rumors and innuendo, the uber left are going to come after, and that's going to discredit the entire group of people based on a rumor or rumors and innuendo. We need to do facts. We need to keep doing it and vote and get new people in. That's my honest opinion. I really do believe that strongly. I get very weary about rumors and innuendo, and some of your callers sometimes I don't know if they're real or not.
Well, for example, what are you referring to? What's not real?
What's not real? Well, do we know for a fact that there was something in the newspapers down in the Central America that perhaps we're telling people not to come here? Is that really a fact, or is that only something the left is putting out? We don't know that for true.
All right, but let's put that aside for the moment.
Okay.
Let's look at the policy of this administration. Do you think Barack Obama has ever tried to stop illegal immigration?
I think he talks a good game, and people, for some reason, are buying into the good game. It's like there is some superficiality in order to get his policies through.
Well, but let me mention to you, ICE, the union for ICE put out a letter, the president of the union, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, for the union, the members, the guys who are the actual border guys, and or inland a little bit, but they are still down there near the border, and Customs and Border Patrol as well. And they said in the letter that they were not being able to do their job. Their hands were tied. They couldn't stop illegal immigration. They weren't allowed to do it. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. And it's also been members of Congress, not just Obama, but the fact is it's been worse with him than with previous administrations. Now tens of thousands of kids come in. I think it's pretty obvious. Thank you for calling. It's good to talk to you.
I agree with you in that regard.
I appreciate that, and I thank you. Let's go to John, who's next. You're on with Mike Siegel, John, for Jeff Kuhner. Very quickly, go ahead.
Quick, I'll try to condense it. We'll talk more about it later. But the way they get their power is, and look in the Constitution when you go home, okay? Constitution says Congress should create the coin and set the value. That means the government should create the money instead of a private organization called the Federal Reserve, which is illegal. The Constitution makes it illegal, which means every cent of interest that you pay on your mortgage and other things is illegal.
Well, but they created an amendment to the Constitution. They passed a federal law in 1913, so I thank you for calling, but I don't want to get into all that.
You have to change. Hold it. You have to change the Constitution. They didn't do that. The Constitution supersedes everything. You should know that.
Fair enough. I appreciate the point. You're right. It's quasi-public. They're owned by the banks, but they are appointed by the president, so they get around it. Let's go to Matt next. Matt, you're on with Mike Siegel very quickly at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Yeah, very quickly. Barack Obama has actually deported more people than George W. Bush.
Not true. What he's deported, and we'll have the Center for Immigration Studies, if you want to go to their website, they do great analyses and they do actual in-depth studies. What Barack Obama has done is to call deportations people who get to the border and are turned around. That's not a deportation, sir. That is a turning around of somebody before they even get into the country. It's not a deportation, and I thank you for calling. Let's go to the other Matt who's here, but ironically, two Matts. Matt, go right ahead.
The infrastructure that he says he's going to use
he's lying. He's using it for other purposes. This buildup of the debt is getting higher and higher. He's going to use it for himself. I'm telling you, this guy is a big nothing. Obama.
I appreciate it, sir, and I thank you for getting the last word on this program. It's been a delight to have everybody here, and the most important thing is a lot of you got the chance to vent your frustrations, because I want you to understand, you're the majority. It may be the silent majority at the moment, but it's going to be the very vocal majority at the voting booths, and what's going to happen in November is going to be an absolute destruction of Democrats in the Senate. Harry Reid's going to be a backseater. Instead of sitting there as majority leader, he'll be minority leader, and we'll get rid of him once and for all in that position. Thank you all. I'll see you again tomorrow. For Jeff Kuhner, this is Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station WRKO. Remember always, please do be good to yourself and the world, and the world will be good to you. Have a great day.
Top and bottom talk in between.
Executing assigned host duties flawlessly because I can't do wrong.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.